Hello, my name is Andrew Diola, and I will be presenting Black Lives Matter. To start off with background, Black Lives Matter began with a hashtag on social media after the release of George Zimmerman in the shooting death of Trayvon Martin back in 2012. The movement grew nationally in 2014 after the deaths of Michael Brown in Missouri and Eric Gardner in New York. Many African American police encounters have given way to the Black Lives Matter movement, but probably the most influential one was the George Floyd incident. The originators of the hashtag and call to action, Alicia Garza, Patrice Coolers, and Opal Tometi, expanded the project into a national network of over 30 local chapters between 2014 and 2016. The overall Black Lives Matter movement is a decentralized network of activists with no formal hierarchy, but the popularity of Black Lives Matter has rapidly shifted over time. Whereas public opinion on Black Lives Matter was net negative in 2018, it grew increasingly popular through 2019 and 2020. A June 2020 Pew Research Center poll found that 67% of adult Americans expressed some support for the Black Lives Matter movement. A later poll conducted in September 2020 showed that support among American adults had dropped to 55%, with notable declines among whites and Hispanics, while support remained widespread among Black adults. In this first picture is a man named George Zimmerman, who shot and killed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. He was later arrested and tried for second-degree murder. In the beginning, there was a ton of sympathy for Trayvon. People like Trump and Obama spoke up about the topic, but the tide began to turn. Trayvon had been skipping school, been suspended for graffiti on lockers, had traces of THC, which indicate marijuana, and had been found in the system. He was starting to become the bad guy as more evidence popped up, but his father thought otherwise. Trayvon was the victim in this case. They tried to make him the villain in this case, stated Tracy Martin, Trayvon's father. In the end, George Zimmerman was a freed criminal from a verdict of not guilty. This series directly links Trayvon's death and the trial with the rise of Black Lives Matter movement, which soon became a national force. In the bottom picture, who you probably know, his name is George Floyd, who was involved in a very unfortunate incident. On May 25th, Minneapolis police officers arrested George Floyd, who was a 46-year-old Black male, after a store employee called the cops and told them that Floyd bought cigarettes with a counterfeit $20 bill. Around 20 minutes after the first squad car arrived, George Floyd was unconscious and pinned beneath 3 police officers, and was later announced dead. Moving on with overview. Black Lives Matter is an international social movement formed in the United States dedicated to fighting racism and anti-Black violence, especially in the form of police brutality. George Floyd was a major player in the Black Lives Matter movement because of the way he blew it up, especially causing countless protests in America. The general awareness of Black Lives Matter movement is widespread among Black and white U.S. adults, but attitudes about the movement vary considerably between groups. Roughly 4 in 10 Americans support the Black Lives Matter movement, and about a third of Americans familiar with Black Lives Matter say they don't understand the goals of the movement. As you can see in this top picture, there are riots with George Floyd's picture. The George Floyd protest movement began hours after his murder, and word of mouth began to spread. These protests quickly spread nationwide and to over 2,000 cities and towns in over 60 countries in support of Black Lives Matter. In the summer of 2020, polls had been taken, and it was estimated that between 15 million and 26 million people had participated in them at some point, making it the largest protest in United States history. While most of the protests had been peaceful, in some cities they escalated into riots, looting, and street skirmishes with police and counter-protesters. Curfews had been put into place in the U.S., and it got so huge that the National Guard, State Guard, 82nd Airborne, and 3rd Infantry Regiment service members had to get involved. This, along with the COVID-19 pandemic, constituted the largest military operation other than war in U.S. history. The protests gave rise to a worldwide debate on racial injustice that led to several legislative proposals on federal, state, and municipal levels intended to fight police misconduct, systematic racism, and police brutality. And last but not least, historical significance. Protesters in cities around the world have demanded for justice for Floyd's death, as well as police reform and accountability from corporations and companies with racially discriminatory policies. The massive outcry on social media and in person at protests has sparked the beginning of a massive change, from police department budget cuts to resignations and the removal of monuments and statues. Mayor Greg Fisher of Louisville announced that Police Chief Steve Conrad was fired after he learned about the fatal shooting of Black business owner David McCarty by two officers who did not have their body cameras on. In response to the murder of Breonna Taylor, Fisher also suspended the use of no-knock warrants that allow police officers to enter homes without providing any notice. But probably the most significant change was in Minneapolis, the city where George Floyd had been killed. The Minneapolis City Council voted unanimously to require police officers to intervene anytime they see unauthorized use of force by another police officer, and to ban chokeholds altogether. The Minneapolis Police Department will end its police union negotiations to make transformational reforms, the police chief announced. And the Black Lives Matter movement will most likely reach the hearts of many generations to come in hopes that more change can be brought upon society to better our country. And that is all I have for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great day.